Hey everyone, my name's Sarah, and I'm a writer, and I'm not a natural speaker. I'm not the best communicator, especially in this medium, but I'll try. What I wanted to talk about was adult survivors of bullying, childhood bullying. I wanted to talk about how it doesn't get taken seriously. It kind of gets made fun of, especially people who have been traumatized by it, especially verbal bullying. um, it gets seen as something that, it's just a rite of passage. It's just a ritual. It's just a part of life. Boys will be boys, kids will be kids. Get over it. Stop crying about it. It's just a part of growing up. And maybe some aspects, some shades of that is true. But unless you actually have gone through it, you have no idea. And though it's not multi layered or maybe multifaceted as other traumas, like being in a car accident, having a debilitating disease, um, being attacked, being in war, being bullied still can lead to a lot of issues. I mean, it, it's amazing how so many people don't have any idea. If you were to do an audit, um, at a psychologist's office or a psychoanalyst office or a therapist office to see how many patients go to them for being bullied. It's one like 1 to 3 maybe. um Most people go for extreme things, or they go for, not getting along with people, this and that, but not a lot of people go for bullying. I think because it's kind of taboo. Like, why would you pay money to complain about being bullied? Why would you even worry about that now that you're an adult? You know, get over it. The past is the past. Live in the present. Move on. And so I think that really stops a lot of people from getting help that they really need. I've seen it on Facebook. I see a lot of people who are suffering. They have a mistrust for people. And if they were verbally bullied, at least the way I was, then they have a mistrust of people, especially the people of their gender. Girls not trusting girls, and then eventually women not trusting women. Boys not trusting boys, not trusting men, that kind of thing. And that can lead to a lot of issues with friendships, neighbors, coworkers, bosses. Hey, I've been through it, and then distrust starts to turn into something sort of benign of, not trusting, starts to turn to something more serious of like being pissed off and not getting along and projecting things to another person that have nothing to do with that person, right? And we see it in movies, we see it on TV shows, but we don't really talk about it in real life. And I like to see a lot of these Facebook groups kind of morph into support groups across the nation for people, in different cities so they can talk about it. Um, if you tell somebody, hey, I have this issue or that issue, death in the family, maybe someone's divorced, someone's that, people will be readily, people will come to you being sympathetic and empathetic. But if you tell someone, yeah, I was bullied in school and I'm having a hard time, a lot of people kind of like are like, well, I was bullied too. What's the big deal? I think there's I can't think of the word right now, but I think there's a differentiation between being teased and being like harangued, harassed, um, criticized constantly, especially in regards to like a long period of time. Like for me, it was between 5 years old to 15 in various locales. First lived in Pennsylvania, it was racism. We were the only people of color. I mean it, only people of color. No black people, no brown people, nobody. No Asian, nothing. it was bad. The teachers were mean, the kids were mean. My parents were really dismissive because they didn't know how to handle it. They lived in India. My dad went to boys' school, my mom went to girls' school. And so they didn't know how to handle it. They were like super dismissive about it. They were like, well, kids will be kids, that whole thing. And the teachers were even worse because they had a whole like, well, ignore them. Don't be such a tattletale. What's your problem? Because they didn't want to teach or they didn't want to deal with the discipline aspect of it, right? Because they didn't want to deal with it. This was the 80s, okay? And a lot of people don't realize that parts of Pennsylvania are actually even more racist than places in the South. A lot of people don't know that, except for people of color who happen to live in Pennsylvania. I can't speak for it now, but in the 1980s, it was pretty bad. And I had to endure that shit. I had kids telling me crazy shit like, my parents are going to sue your parents. And when I heard the word sue, I didn't know what that meant. I thought it meant sew, like they're going to sew my parents, like they're going to sew them. It was, I didn't even tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody about half the shit because I didn't think they would care. And then we moved to Jersey, and there were other Indian kids and other, Asians and stuff. But the problem with that was, even though the racism part was in there, it was like really personal and mean. And I was, kind of a dirty, scrappy kid. And though that changed, as does with age, these kids were just really ruthless. They were really mean. My grades weren't as good as theirs, and I didn't know how to cultivate friendships. I had a big chip on my shoulder, and so that was not good. Then we moved to Virginia, and the first place we moved to, because of the corporation my dad was working for, we were in between houses, and the school was poor. And some of these kids, lunches were like probably the only meal that they had that day. So they were angry and they were financially insecure. And I think because of that, they would take it out on me sometimes because the neighborhood I lived in was nice. So that was strange. And then we moved to Yorktown, had a house, and it was upper middle class, and it was and white people again, and they were even meaner. And and it, and then we moved back to Jersey, and then that became a whole thing. Then I became a truant. Then I had to go to alternative school. And finally, we moved to Louisiana, and I got it together. But I had such a big chip on my shoulder by that time that I was a total bitch to other people. Sometimes when you're bullied for so long, you become a bully because that's what you know. That's what you know. And I was a total bitch. I mean, I really was. I ended friendships before they even really had a chance to start. I feel bad. And then as the years went by, I had a really deep mistrust for my bosses and my coworkers. And sometimes I would feel like, that person would have been a bully to me. I just know it. And there's no way of really knowing, right? Unless if it's like 100% obvious. You're just making these assumptions. But when you go through the psychological torment of being bullied, you make those type of assumptions about people. Because people hurt you, right? Not an animal, not the weather, not Mother Nature, not, a higher entity. People, kids, And so you start getting angry, and it builds and it builds unless you get therapy and you really get into it and you have a sympathetic therapist who sees bullying as a real problem, not just something that just kind of happens and you got to go through it and move along. Get the right therapist, and there are good therapists out there, and you do the work, you will get better. And now there's more books about it. 10 years ago when I was looking for the subject, I found one book. It was called A Ladder in the Dark. And this guy wrote very honestly, it's self published, I believe. And he kind of became a champion for adult survivors of childhood bullying. I think he has a website. I think he has a presence on Facebook. Anyway, his book, A Ladder in the Dark, it should be on Amazon.com or, whatever. You should definitely get it. There's other books in bullying. Um, I can't think of any author names, but if you look it up, adult survivors of bullying, there's books now. There's sociological papers, there's sociological books based on the sociology and the psychology of different stages of why people bully, the school the schoolyard bully, pack mentality, all these sort of things, right? There are books on that if you want to study it, and then there's workbooks to figure out your own personal issues in regards to being bullied. Um, I see comments on Facebook of people who are just in a lot of pain and no one wants to hear it. And, Facebook's great and stuff for, people commenting and giving you, letting you know you're not the only one out there. But unless if you really do the work in therapy, and I'm hoping more people will make videos like these, better videos than I'm able to make, because this is not my forte at all. Um, make more videos like this and actually start having chapters of support groups of this. I think the better all we will be. Um, we're seeing a lot of consequences of what happens when people who are bullied goes unchecked. You see a lot of people dealing with mental illnesses that unfortunately turn into violence. And unless we talk about this, then people will suffer, and people who've been suffering will cause other people to suffer. So I think it's really important that this get taken seriously and not just become fodder for, um, comics or not just become fodder for, like, people just trying to be mean. um, when they tell their kids don't be soft. Bullying's just a part of life. um, it, I really believe that really needs to be checked. Everyone has the right to their own opinion, and that's a great thing about being an American and all that. But unless you experience it, especially for 10 years straight or more, you have no idea what you're talking about. It's like someone who's been in a car accident trying to explain their trauma and of not wanting to drive and being in a car. If you've never been in a car accident, how are you going to know that, right? You're not going to fully know that. So, but other people who've been in that accident do that type of accident will know. And I think with bullying, it's that too, that we need to find people that have been through it, understand it, and empathize with it. And even people who haven't been through it, maybe they can understand more. I think schools need to be more proactive, not just have a no bullying policy, because sometimes those can be counterproductive, and bullying can be very loosely um, assessed, like, oh, this girl didn't get invited to this girl's party, she's a bully, we all need to get together and talk about that. I'm sorry, not getting invited to someone's pool party was the least of my worries growing up, okay? um that is, to me, is not bullying. I mean, yes, being left out of things sucks, but even as adults we get left out of things. That to me is not severe, serious bullying, okay? um I understand being isolated sucks, and it's great when people make an effort to help those who are isolated. But if we keep on calling everything bullying, then we're not going to get into the real issue, the real crux of the matter, right? So I think it's really important, and it's okay if you don't agree with me, that we differentiate serious bullying and, the difference between that and people being cliquey. People are going to be cliquey anywhere, everywhere, and that's just the part of life. You're not going to like everybody. Not everybody's going to like you, and that's okay. That's okay. But being harangued, harassed, name called, and criticized, to me, and worse, to me, is what severe bullying can be. And that needs to stop. And I think kids need to be educated. They need to understand the harmful ramifications of being bullied. They need to stop their own behaviors. They need to do, I think Monica Lewinsky talked about it, like bystander kind of things where you see it happening and you say, hey, that's not right. That's not cool. Don't do that. And for all the kids that were really mean and they were little sociopaths, there were some good kids too that defended me and said, hey, leave her alone. That's not cool. And I really hope those kids are doing well because they really went out of their way and went out of their social ladder, basically, to step in for me. And to me, that takes a lot of guts, especially when you have a lot to lose when you're young, right? And to defend somebody that's so unpopular, that takes a lot of guts. It's so much easier to be sheep. It's so much easier to be a lemming and just go with it. It takes a lot of, it takes a big moral compass. It takes a lot of guts to stand up for people. And if we do that more as a society, I think we'll see less acts of random violence. I think we'll see less hurt and I'll just have a better society in general. And I just want to tell you, to all of those who have been bullied, that karma, she's out there. She's real. And there's a few people I've written on that on my list um, that have gotten the full karma experience. Maybe it's from how they treated me, maybe it's from something else. One kid graduated a lot later than he needed to be. One girl is in a very bad state of health, um, and other. I won't even go into others because it'll just make me sound mean. So my point is, karma is not always fair, but she's always just. And believe me, I've been a bitch to other people too, and I've gotten karma, and I've been like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's probably from that one time I did that. Sometimes it's so exact, it's there's no way that it isn't, right? Anyway, get therapy, get help, read these books, make these videos, start support groups, um, write little newsletters or zines, photocopied uh, type of things, and send it out. If you belong to a religious organization, have a group for kids who are going through this, in your religious, organization, or at school. I think schools, we need to talk about bullying. We need to talk about um, abusive relationships. We need to talk about consent. So when kids are 18 and 19, they will already know all these issues before they even go to college, right? And I really think doing this will make a better society. I'm just trying to do my part. I don't know if it'll make a difference or anyone will care, but I hope that if you have been bullied, that this video has helped in some way. Um, Even if it just makes you like call a therapist and do a few sessions, even if it makes you just read Ladder in the Dark. I really highly recommend everybody reading it, but make sure you're in the right state of mind to read it. It's heavy. It's heavy stuff. Um, and triggers are everywhere, unfortunately. But if you're in therapy and you're doing the right things, those triggers will lessen. And and people are good. I think most people are good. I think when you're bullied, you forget that. And it's important to know, don't let the fact that you were bullied make you bitter. Don't let it make you a jerk in this world, because it's really easy. Believe me, I know. It's really easy. Um, and I guess that's all I have to say. I hope this helped. If it didn't, then that's okay too. Maybe, make a better video than I've made, and encourage others to speak out. It's the only way. It's the only way. Good luck.